When I discovered my wife was cheating with multiple men, I crashed through the front door of a lakeside rental house and caught her wrapped in satin sheets, giggling into her wine glass while three different men I had never seen before, hand-fed her strawberries. She didn't scream, didn't cover herself, didn't even flinch. She just blinked at me, drunk on lies and freedom, while they all scrambled for their clothes like roaches when the light comes on. My hands stayed at my sides. My voice stayed trapped in my throat. The world didn't shatter, it peeled apart in thick, wet strips, and I stood there, breathing in the rot. It started quietly. The first odd thing was the late-night showers. We used to crawl into bed together every night after dinner, exhausted, wrapped around each other like we were afraid of the dark. Suddenly, she needed showers at midnight. Long ones. The kind where the hot water steamed the mirrors and the bathroom door stayed firmly locked. I asked her about it once, half joking. She laughed it off, said it helped her sleep. Said the warm water was like therapy. I wanted to believe her. I almost did. But little things started piling up. She changed her passcode. First time in years. Didn't mention it. Didn't offer it. Just a silent new lock between us. When I asked, carefully, why, she smiled too big and said, security stuff for work. Work, suddenly, was a fortress. She started working late 4 nights a week. Projects running behind, new deadlines, team dinners. The excuses stacked like cordwood. Every night she came home later. Every night her hair was a little more mussed, her perfume a little sharper. There was a night she slipped up. She came home, dropped her purse, and bolted for the bathroom. I went to pick it up for her, and her phone tumbled out, screen lit up with a message preview. Had a blast. Same time next week. No name attached. No signature. Just those words. By the time she came back, I tucked it back inside without a word. I wasn't ready to see her lie to my face yet. I started noticing other things. New lingerie. Tags still attached. Stuff I hadn't seen her wear. Stuff she never wore for me. Hidden receipts from restaurants we'd never gone to together. New high heels tucked under the bed, too scuffed to be brand new. Stray blonde hairs in the passenger seat of her car. She has dark brown hair. She started humming songs I'd never heard her play before. Songs about secrets, about nights out, about bodies colliding in the dark. When I asked if she wanted to plan a trip, just the two of us, something we used to love, she hesitated. Said work was too crazy. Said maybe later in the year. Said she wasn't feeling up to it. Our bedroom turned into a museum. Cold. Dusty. Displayed but not touched. I would roll over at night and find her already facing the opposite direction, curled tight, clutching her phone under her pillow like a lifeline. Then came the girls' nights. Sudden, constant, full of names I barely recognized. Photos sent from bars, always just the drinks, never the faces. Always grainy, like a shield against questions. One night, I offered to drive her and her friends. Be their designated driver. She declined so fast it stung. Said they'd already arranged a rideshare. That it would be weird if I showed up. I said nothing. I watched from the upstairs window as a black SUV pulled up, and she jumped inside without a backward glance. I memorized the license plate, the way her smile stretched wider than it had in months. 2 days later, I found a second phone, hidden in her gym bag. Dead battery. Same case as her work phone to blend in. When I confronted her, she laughed and said it was an old backup. Said she forgot it was there. I didn't press. I wasn't ready. Not yet. Instead, I started paying closer attention. Her gym clothes smelled like expensive cologne. Not like sweat. Not like soap. Like something foreign and invasive. She wore makeup to the grocery store. Heels to pick up dry cleaning. Lipstick too bright for errands. Her texts became shorter. Her laughs became tighter. One night she didn't come home at all. She said her phone died. Said she stayed at a friend's place. Said it was too late to drive. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just nodded, and the next day I went through our bank statements. There it was. A charge from a hotel 30 miles away. One room. One night. Paid in full. Her story changed when I showed her. She said it was for a surprise getaway she was planning for us. Said it was supposed to be a secret. That I ruined it by snooping. Tears welled in her eyes, trembling furious. I apologized. I held her. I told her I was sorry for not trusting her. She forgave me too quickly. That's when I knew. I didn't catch her yet. But the noose was already around her neck. And soon, I'd be the one pulling it tight. The distance between us grew in inches first, then in miles. I tried to ignore it. I tried to tell myself it was normal, that every couple went through rough patches. Stress at work. Sleepless nights. Maybe I was just seeing ghosts where there weren't any. At least, that's what I repeated to myself every morning when I watched her standing at the bathroom mirror, carefully painting her lips a shade of red I hadn't seen her wear in years. She never wore it for me. When I commented on it, teasing, she shrugged and said it made her feel powerful, that it was just a fun new phase. I kissed her cheek that morning and tasted a woman I barely recognized. The first small fights crept in soon after. Tiny, stupid arguments that exploded faster than they should have. I asked if she wanted to go hiking one Saturday, something we always loved. She sighed, heavy and theatrical, and said she had too much to do. I asked her if she was still coming to my cousin's birthday. She said maybe, if she wasn't too tired. I asked her if she was okay. She said I was being clingy. The word stung. I let it go. But the silence between us afterward rang louder than any shouting ever could. The next week, she started working late even more. Always some last-minute project? Some emergency meeting. When I offered to come pick her up one night, she snapped. Said she wasn't a child who needed babysitting. Another fight. More cold dinners. More cold shoulders. And still, every time she apologized later, whispered she was just stressed, just tired, that she loved me and needed me, I believed her. Because I had to. Because the alternative was too ugly to face. One night, after another strange work dinner, she came home carrying a tote bag I didn't recognize. When I asked her about it, she froze for a split second, then laughed and said it was a gift from the office. Some team-building thing, she said, tossing it onto the chair. You know how it is. I nodded, smiled, pretended like the bag didn't smell faintly of cologne and cigarette smoke, pretended like the world wasn't tilting under my feet. Another Saturday, she said she had brunch with friends. I offered to come. She declined. Said it was a girls-only thing. Said she needed time to recharge. Said I was overthinking. Maybe I was. I spent that morning cleaning the garage, mindless work to keep my brain from gnawing itself apart. When I looked at the clock, it was past 2. She wasn't home. No text. No call. When she finally walked through the door near sunset, her cheeks were flushed, her smile brittle. Sorry, she said. We lost track of time. She hugged me. A little too tight. A little too desperate. I held her back and closed my eyes, drowning in the smell of alcohol and something sharper I couldn't place. That night, she initiated intimacy for the first time in weeks. It was frantic, messy, almost painful, like she was trying to bury something under my skin. I let her. Because maybe that meant she was still mine. Maybe. Sunday morning, she made pancakes. She hadn't done that in months. She sang while she cooked, an old song we used to dance to in the kitchen. For an hour, it almost felt normal. But then her phone buzzed, and everything froze. She snatched it up so fast she almost dropped the pan. Said it was just work. I didn't ask to see it. I didn't want to know. Later that week, she bought a new set of lingerie. Left the bag sitting on the bed like a gift. When I asked if it was for me, she laughed. Of course, she said. But the words didn't stick. They slid off her tongue too easily. That night, she wore an old t-shirt to bed. The lingerie stayed folded neatly in the bag, untouched. I told myself she was just tired. Maybe she was waiting for the right moment. Maybe. The following Friday, we had dinner plans. Our anniversary. I made reservations at her favorite restaurant. Bought flowers. Wrote a stupid little card. I waited at the table for 30 minutes before I called her. Straight to voicemail. She arrived an hour late. No apology. Said work ran late again. She barely touched her food. Barely touched me. When we got home, she went straight to bed without a word. I sat in the kitchen, staring at the untouched flowers on the counter, wondering when exactly she had stopped being mine. Maybe it was my fault. Maybe I hadn't been enough. Maybe I worked too much. Talked too little. Kissed her like a habit instead of a promise. The doubts gnawed at me until there was nothing left but bone. The next day, she suggested we take a weekend trip together. I almost cried from relief. Maybe she still wanted us. Maybe she still needed me. Maybe there was hope. We booked a cabin up north. Just 2 days. Just the two of us. The drive up was quiet but comfortable. We held hands. Played old songs. She smiled at me. A real smile. For the first time in months, I breathed easy. That night, sitting by the fire, wrapped in a blanket, she leaned against me and whispered that she loved me. I kissed her hair and whispered it back. Maybe everything was going to be okay. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was all in my head. Maybe. But even as she fell asleep against me, Even as I listened to her slow, steady breathing, something deep in my chest stayed locked tight. Something that wouldn't believe it. Something that whispered, "Not yet. Not yet." And it was right. Because the real storm hadn't even started. Not yet. The weekend trip didn't save us. It delayed the inevitable, stretched the thread between us thinner, pulled it tighter, until I could hear it groaning under the weight of everything unspoken. The ride home was silent. She stared out the window most of the drive, tracing raindrops with her fingertip, smiling at jokes I wasn't telling. At a red light, I reached over to squeeze her hand. She flinched. A tiny movement. A fraction of a second. But I felt it. She apologized immediately, squeezed back harder like she could erase it. I said nothing. I didn't have the energy to pretend anymore. When we pulled into the driveway, she grabbed her bag and rushed inside without waiting for me. By the time I got upstairs, she was already in the shower, door locked, music blasting. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the pattern on the comforter, tracing the faded shapes with my finger, wondering how many more nights I would spend pretending we weren't strangers sleeping under the same roof. The following week, things didn't get better. If anything, they got worse. Her smiles became rarer. Her laughter, more forced. Every conversation felt like a negotiation. Every kiss felt like a performance. We started avoiding each other around the house, moving in different patterns, orbiting without touching. One night, she picked a fight over nothing. I forgot to take the trash out. She exploded, yelled about how she couldn't rely on me for anything, how everything was always on her shoulders. I stood there, stunned, holding the garbage bag in my hands while she shredded me with words that didn't fit her mouth. I apologized, said I would do better. She stared at me for a long moment, something cold flashing in her eyes, then stormed upstairs without another word. The sound of the door slamming echoed through the house long after she disappeared. I stood in the kitchen until my legs went numb. Later, I found her asleep in bed, curled up on her side, facing the wall. I didn't join her. I slept on the couch. And for the first time in years, I didn't miss her warmth beside me, because it hadn't been mine for a long time. 2 days later, she suggested a break, not a separation, just space. She said she needed time to find herself again, said she was overwhelmed, said she was tired of fighting, tired of pretending. I asked her if she was tired of me. She didn't answer. She packed a bag and left that night, said she was staying with a friend. She kissed my cheek at the door, like a stranger. And then she was gone. The house felt hollow without her. Every creak and groan sounded louder, like the walls themselves were mocking me. I sat in the living room staring at my phone, willing it to ring. It didn't. Days passed. She sent short texts. Updates. Doing okay. Hope you're good. Need more time. Each one a knife. Each one a reminder that she was slipping further and further away, and I was standing there, helpless to stop it. One night, after 3 days of nothing, she called. Said she missed me. Said she wanted to come home. Said she was sorry. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. I told her to come back. Told her I loved her. Told her we could fix it. She came back the next morning, eyes red-rimmed, suitcase in hand. We hugged in the doorway, clumsy and stiff. Her body felt foreign against mine, but I held her anyway. Pretended we could stitch ourselves back together. Pretended the holes weren't too big. That night, we sat on the couch and watched old movies. Movies we used to love. She laughed at the wrong parts. I smiled when she wasn't looking. It almost felt normal, until she got a text and her face changed. Just for a second, but long enough for me to see it. The guilt, the panic, the sorrow. She put her phone face down and snuggled against me, pressing kisses to my neck, whispering how much she missed me. I kissed her back, held her close, and stared over her shoulder at the phone glowing silently on the table. The next morning, she was different. Sweeter, softer, more attentive. She made breakfast, wore my old sweatshirt, sat in my lap like she used to. It felt good. It felt dangerous, because it wasn't real. I could feel the cracks running under the surface, spider-webbing wider with every forced laugh, every too hard kiss. But I clung to it anyway, because I didn't know what else to do. Later that week, she planned a date night. Dinner, drinks, a walk along the river. We laughed. We danced under the streetlights. She kissed me like she meant it. And for a few hours, I let myself believe we were okay, that we could survive this. That love was enough. But the feeling didn't last. It never did anymore. The next morning, I found her crying in the bathroom. She said it was work stress. Said she just needed a minute. I believed her, because if I didn't, I would have to face the truth that was gnawing at the edges of my mind. That she wasn't really crying for work. She was mourning something else. Something she couldn't tell me. Something we had already lost. Later that night, lying in bed, I watched her sleep. Watched her face twitch in dreams I wasn't part of. Watched her murmur names I didn't recognize. And I knew. I knew the foundation was crumbling beneath us. I knew she was slipping through my fingers. I knew I couldn't stop it. But still I stayed. Still I hoped. Still I loved her. Even as she dreamed of someone else. Even as the storm gathered just beyond the horizon, waiting to break. She was home again. But it wasn't home anymore. We moved around each other like chess pieces on a cracked board. Each step cautious, rehearsed. Smiles stretched too tight. Conversations clipped and careful. Every touch felt staged. Every kiss, a lie we both told but neither believed. She started working out more. Said she needed to get her mind right. Bought new yoga pants, new sneakers, new sports bras. Things she never cared about before. Every morning she left before sunrise. Every evening she came back dripping with sweat and excuses. Some days she would bring smoothies home, setting one in front of me without a word. Other days she would drift past me like smoke, shower running before I could even ask how her workout was. I started tracking the time, watching the clock every time she left. One morning, she said she'd be back by 9. By noon, I was still sitting there, staring at the door like a lost dog. She came home humming a song I didn't know, hair messy, cheeks flushed. When I asked what took so long, she laughed, said she got caught up talking with the girls. Which girls? I didn't ask. I didn't want to hear another lie dressed up in glitter and perfume. She started taking more business trips too. Quick, last-minute conferences. Out-of-town meetings. Networking events that didn't exist on any calendar. Always solo. Always urgent. She'd pack light, kiss my cheek, and vanish into the night with promises to call that echoed hollow through the empty house. Sometimes she'd call. Sometimes she wouldn't. When she did, it was always rushed. Always distracted. Always background noise I couldn't place. A bar? A party? Laughter that didn't sound like hers. I'd ask how her day went. She'd say, fine. I'd tell her I missed her. She'd say, miss you too. But it sounded like she was reading off a script. The worst part was, I still wanted to believe her. Every lie, every crack in the story, I filled them in myself. Made excuses. Built bridges over chasms too wide to cross. Because if I stopped, if I looked too closely, I knew I'd fall straight through. One night, after she came back from another conference, I noticed a new necklace around her throat. Simple, elegant, gold, with a tiny heart pendant. I hadn't bought it. When I asked, she said it was a vendor giveaway. A freebie from some marketing event. She smiled too wide. Twisted the chain around her finger until her knuckles turned white. I nodded. Pretended to believe her. Later, while she was in the shower, I found the box in her luggage. Tiffany's. No vendor gives away Tiffany jewelry. I stared at the pristine blue box for a long time, the kind of staring that hollows you out from the inside. I put it back exactly how I found it. Said nothing. Did nothing. Because I wasn't ready yet. The phone became another battlefield. She took it everywhere now, even to the bathroom, even to the laundry room. She slept with it under her pillow. One night, while she was asleep, it buzzed against my leg. A message preview popped up. Thinking of you. Can't wait. No name. Just a number. I stared at the screen, heart hammering so loud I was sure it would wake her. I could have opened it. Could have seen everything. Instead, I let it fade to black. Because if I opened it, it would be real. And if it was real, I didn't know if I would survive it. The paranoia got worse. I started noticing things. Receipts hidden in the trash, hotel bars, Uber rides from neighborhoods we never visited. Unfamiliar cologne lingering in the hallway. Stray hairs on her coat that didn't match mine or hers. One afternoon, folding laundry, I found a man's sock mixed in with our clothes. Not mine. Not hers. I stared at it like it was a gun. She laughed when I asked about it. Said maybe it was from the laundromat, mixed up in the dryer. We have a washer and dryer at home. I smiled. I nodded. I believed her, because the lie was easier than the truth. Our fights became colder, sharper. We didn't scream. We sliced each other open with silence. She started sleeping on the far side of the bed, barely brushing against me even by accident. I started waking up at 3 in the morning, drenched in sweat, certain I heard her whispering into the darkness. I'd sit up, heart thundering, but the house would be silent. Still, I knew. I knew her heart wasn't beating for me anymore. At work, I stopped concentrating. Forgot meetings. Missed deadlines. My boss pulled me aside one day, asked if everything was okay at home. I lied to him too. Said everything was great. Said we were stronger than ever. The same lie I told myself every night as I fell asleep alone beside a woman who no longer belonged to me. The facade cracked one night when I suggested we go away for a weekend. Just us. Like we used to. She hesitated. Said she wasn't sure about her schedule. Said she'd think about it. I pressed. I pushed. Finally, she snapped. Said she needed space. Said she felt trapped. Said she couldn't breathe around me anymore. Her words hit harder than any slap. I backed off. Apologized. Watched her slam the door to the bathroom and lock it behind her. I stood outside the door for a long time, listening to her breathing, listening to her cry. Or maybe she was laughing. I couldn't tell anymore. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. Made coffee. Kissed my cheek. Told me to have a good day at work. I almost believed her. Almost. That night, she said she was meeting the girls again. She wore a new dress. One I'd never seen. Low cut. Tight. Beautiful. She didn't ask what I thought. She didn't need to. The mirror told her everything she needed to know. I watched her drive away, taillights disappearing into the night. And I sat in the dark house, staring at the empty driveway, wondering if she would come back at all. The hours dragged. Midnight came and went. No call. No text. At 2 a.m., I finally heard her key in the lock. She stumbled through the door, heels in her hand, hair messy, makeup smudged. She smelled like alcohol and smoke and something else I didn't want to name. She smiled at me, a lazy, drunken smile, and mumbled something about how great the night had been. I helped her to bed, tucked her in, watched her pass out still wearing that damn dress, and sat beside her until the sun came up, wondering how much of her was still mine, if any of her was. The answer came in the silence between her heartbeats. None. None at all. But still, I stayed. Still, I waited. Because sometimes the only thing worse than knowing the truth is admitting it out loud. And I wasn't ready. Not yet. But soon. The night I decided to end it, the air was so heavy it felt like a warning. She was out again. Another girls' night. Another carefully rehearsed lie. She didn't even bother dressing up anymore. I didn't wait at home this time. I had spent too many nights rotting on the couch, choking on silence and perfume that wasn't for me. This time, I followed. Carefully. Quietly. She didn't notice. Too busy checking her makeup in the mirror of her car, texting furiously with fingers she used to trace along my skin. She drove across town, weaving through neighborhoods she never mentioned to me. Pulled into a small hotel off the highway, hidden behind a row of dead trees and neon signs that buzzed like flies over a corpse. I parked 2 lots over and watched. She got out. Tight dress. Too much perfume. No hesitation. She wasn't alone long. A black truck pulled in beside her. Then another. And another. 3 men stepped out. Laughing. Slapping backs. Winking. She smiled at all of them. The same smile she used to save for me. I didn't move. Didn't blink. I let them disappear inside, her in the middle, like a queen holding court. I waited 20 minutes. Long enough for the front desk clerk to get bored. Long enough for the night to sink its claws deeper into my ribs. Then I walked in. Polite. Calm. A man with a mission. The clerk barely looked up. I slipped a folded bill across the counter and asked, easy as breathing, "Hey, I'm supposed to meet some friends here. Room number?" He hesitated. I pushed the money closer. He shrugged. Typed something into the computer. Muttered a number. 3rd floor. I took the stairs 2 at a time. Silent. Controlled. Stopped outside the door. Heard them. Laughter. Clinking glasses. Her voice, high and bright and giddy. I didn't knock. I didn't hesitate. I kicked the door open so hard it slammed into the wall and bounced halfway closed again. The room froze. She was draped across the bed, a wine glass dangling from her fingers, giggling as one man massaged her feet and another whispered in her ear. The third stood at the mini-bar pouring drinks. All 3 turned, faces slack with shock. She dropped her glass. It shattered at her feet, spraying red wine like blood across the cheap white comforter. For a second, no one moved. Then chaos. The man by the bed scrambled backward, tripping over his own shoes. The one at the minibar cursed under his breath, grabbing his jacket. The third just stood there, wide-eyed, trying to stammer out some kind of excuse. She screamed my name. Like it meant something. Like I was supposed to forget what I was seeing. I didn't scream back, didn't raise my fists, didn't say a single word. Instead, I pulled out my phone. Hit play. The Bluetooth speaker I slipped into her purse earlier that night clicked on, loud and vicious. Their messages blasted into the room. Can't wait to taste you again tonight. Best night of my life. Tell your husband thanks for letting us borrow you. Her face crumpled. The men started yelling at me, at her, at each other. I stayed calm. Filmed it all. Every pleading look. Every drunken slur. Every pathetic excuse. She lunged for me, sobbing, begging, swearing it was the first time, that she didn't mean it, that she still loved me. I stepped back, watched her stumble, watched her crumple to the carpet, clutching the spilled wine like it could erase the stain she carved into our lives. Then I turned and left. No goodbyes. No second chances. Just the door slamming behind me, loud and final as a coffin lid. Outside, the night air was cold and clean. For the first time in months, I could breathe. I didn't go home. I went straight to the lawyer's office. Papers already prepared. Evidence printed, time-stamped, bulletproof. She wouldn't see a dime. No house. No car. No name. I made sure of that. I had copies of everything, the hotel footage, the text threads, the credit card statements. I sent them to her parents, to her sister, to her boss. Anyone who ever looked at me with pity when she smiled too wide and told them we were fine. I let them see her for what she really was. A liar. A fraud. A fire that burned everything and smiled at the ashes. When she came crawling back days later, mascara smeared, voice shaking, I didn't even open the door. I watched through the peephole as she sobbed against the frame. Watched her crumple to the ground, fist pounding weakly against the wood. Watched her realize that this time, there was no forgiveness waiting for her on the other side. Only silence. Only the life she chose. Only the ruins she built with her own hands. And I smiled. A real smile. Because this time, the one thing she couldn't steal was my peace. Not anymore. Not ever again. Subscribe to hear more stories.